Welcome to the Georgia High School Mock Trial Competition. Thank you for volunteering your time to sit on a judging panel for the 2018 High School Mock Trial Competition. This video is intended to provide the panel members information about the duties of the panel and hopefully shorten the time needed for the on-site judging panel orientation before each round. Thank you for taking the time to review the case materials for the season and viewing this video, as well as giving your time to sit on the panel. Without you, there'd be no mock trial competition. Most of the information you will need for the competition can be found on the judging panel information page of the mock trial website, the same location where you found this video. If you have any issues accessing the materials, contact the mock trial office directly. On the website, you will find a copy of the case materials, rules of the mock trial competition, the rules of evidence used in the mock trial competition, and the judging panel manual. In the manual, you will find the script used by presiding judges during the trial round and the trial guidelines for the evaluators. Please take the time to read the case before trial. The students have spent many hours preparing for trial, and your knowledge of the facts will help you appreciate the level of skill in scoring the teams. You will also receive a copy of the bench brief from your coordinator via email. This is intended to give the evaluators a bit of insight into the case. Obviously, the bench brief is confidential and should not be made available to the teams. Again, please be sure to review the materials before the day of competition. Your coordinator will provide details of the competition, location, and times. In order to keep the day's schedule on track, please make sure to arrive on time. If you know you're going to be late, please contact the coordinating team as soon as possible so they know when to expect you. Each round must produce 3 score sheets. The goal of every coordinating team is to have 1 presiding judge on the bench and 3 evaluators in the jury box. However, it is not always possible to secure enough volunteers to have 3 evaluators. In this case, the presiding judge will be asked to complete a score sheet as well. When you arrive, check in at the judging panel orientation room. Its location should be on the assignment memo sent by your coordinator. A brief judging panel orientation will take place to highlight a few things. Finally, the courtroom assignments will be made and the panels will be dismissed to the courtrooms. Each panel will receive a judging panel packet with the materials needed for the round. At the conclusion of the trial round, all panel members will need to report back to the orientation room to be cleared for the scoring coordinator for dismissal. Each judging panel will receive a packet of the materials that contain 3 green scratch sheets, 3 official ballots, 3 comment sheets, 3 cardboard writing pads, an outstanding attorney and an outstanding witness award, and a copy of the script for the presiding judge. The panel will have a chance to organize the materials in the jury deliberation room before entering the courtroom. Before going in for trial, the evaluators only need to take in their individual scratch sheet, comment sheet, and writing pad. The rest should remain behind in the deliberation room for use after trial. After the evaluators take their place in the jury box, one of the evaluators should announce the judge. The presiding judge should take the bench and seat the courtroom. Timekeepers from each team will already be in place in the jury's box. They should be in the front row and give the evaluator space. Some teams may also have a court artist contestant at the regional level. The artist may be in the jury box or somewhere else in the courtroom. During the entirety of the day, please do not ask any team or student what school they are from. Their anonymity is crucial to the fairness and lack of bias in scoring operations. Once you are in the courtroom, if you realize that you have already judged or scored the same set of students in this level of competition, please excuse yourself and let the trial coordinating team know so they may resolve the conflict. If you recognize a student or team from a previous season or outside the courtroom, this does not automatically trigger a conflict of concern. Please remain neutral in your scoring and do not approach the students, parent, or coach to chit-chat or catch up. Pretend you don't know them or don't see them. The perception of bias is very damaging to the teams, and we want to prevent this perception as much as possible. Presiding judges will have a script to follow throughout the trial. This includes a pretrial conference with the 2 teams. Once the panel is seated, the judge will have the teams give the evaluators and judge a copy of the trial squad roster form. Teams will also introduce themselves to the court and make any pretrial requests of the court. Typical requests include asking the judge's permission to move freely about the courtroom, move the podium when needed, and the judge's preferences on approaching the witnesses and the bench. Finally, the judge will have the opportunity to swear in the witnesses with the language found in the script. Mock trial uses a modified version of the Georgia and federal rules of evidence. For example, not all the exceptions to the hearsay rule are included. Teams may not use rules of evidence that are not included in the mock trial rules. Students are only expected to use this modified set of rules and should not be expected to apply other rules to the trial. Throughout the trial, objections will be made. This gives students a chance to show off their knowledge and skill, including their knowledge of the rules themselves. Many teams will include the rule number to the objection. It is up to the presiding judge to ask for a rule citation if one is not given. While you should be familiar with all the mock trial rules, there are some that are worth highlighting. Each team has been provided with a set of exhibits to use during trial. Teams may not use their own exhibits that are enhanced in size or content. These must be clean copies, free of any highlighting, marking, or page protectors. The competition has provided enlarged copies of one exhibit for trial. These are treated as original exhibits. The witnesses are bound by the statements as presented in their case materials and by any stipulations. Witnesses may contradict the statements of other witnesses, but may not contradict their own. Costumes are not allowed. Witnesses should not dress in a manner that highlights the character they are portraying. Accents and acting, however, are fine. Attorneys may not voir dire witnesses in aid of objection. Teams may not use judicial notice to admit facts not contained in the case materials. Don't worry about the pronouns. Witnesses are written to be gender neutral, and teams sometimes get confused as to who they are talking about or talking to. Mixing up pronouns should not affect the score. Finally, unfair extrapolations are not allowed. We'll look at those more in a minute. The rules of competition place time limits on each segment of the trial. Each side has 5 minutes to present their opening statement. Each side then has a total of 25 minutes to perform the direct examination of all 3 of their witnesses. Opposing counsel has a total of 20 minutes to cross-examine those 3 witnesses. Finally, each side has 5 minutes to present the closing arguments. The prosecution may bifurcate its closing. Time does stop for objections and arguments, but does not stop for the introduction of evidence. Each team is required to provide one timekeeper per courtroom. While timekeepers are provided by the teams, they work on behalf of the court, keeping a neutral accounting of the time spent by each side. 2 are used as a backup system for accurate and neutral timekeeping. If one of the teams in the courtroom does not have a timekeeper, that team must concede to the time kept by the other team's timekeeper and may not object to any time issues. If neither squad has a timekeeper, then a coach from each team is required to keep time for the round. The timekeepers sit in the jury box and indicate remaining time of a segment using yellow time cards. Timekeepers are instructed to notify the judge if there is a 15-second difference between the 2 watches at any point during the round. The judge will then inquire the timekeepers as to what happened and make a ruling as to how to proceed. At the expiration of time, a stop card will be shown. This will end the segment of time for the team speaking. If a team still has a witness remaining to testify after the expiration of a time, Rule 14D gives the presiding judge guidance on handling the situation. As you have seen, each round has strict limits on time in order to keep the day's schedule on track. Students may not share time between segments of a trial. The stop card should be strictly enforced. You will probably hear from the opposing team that the stop card has been shown before you realize it yourself. Though time is a concern, do allow the teams to have enough of a back and forth on objections to let them show off their knowledge and skill. Do not let it go on forever, though. Finally, breaks are not allowed during trial. Teams should be prepared to present their entire case in one sitting. A lack of preparation on their part does not constitute an emergency on the courts. Remember, mock trial is an educational competition and not real court. Students are competing to show their knowledge, preparation, and skill in the courtroom and to be judged by real lawyers. Evaluators are looking at the overall execution of a team's case rather than the legal merits of that case. It's not about who wins or loses the case, but how well the team presents their case. Teams should be expected to showcase their skill and preparations while having a sound knowledge of the legal facts of the case and courtroom skills. This may come out as a longer than usual objection explanation or citing rule numbers when real lawyers may never do so. Objections are a big part of the mock trial round. Only the attorney responsible for examining the witness may object or respond to an objection occurring during that witness's examination. As we've already discussed, rule citations suggested by the teams. This is another opportunity for the team to show off their preparation. An objection may be made regarding opposing counsel's opening statement or closing argument. To do so, the objecting attorney will wait until the conclusion of the statement and argument to make their case. The presenting attorney will have a chance to respond to the objection in their own defense. While no ruling will be made from the bench, evaluators may award points to the attorneys based on the objection and response. Finally, evaluator scores are not tied to the ruling from the bench. The scoring system is not meant to reward an attorney for having her objection sustained, nor punishing her for having it overruled. When an objection is made, the presiding judge should allow the objecting attorney to make his or her argument. The opposing counsel should then be allowed to respond. Most students will ask to be heard for rebuttal, and they both may want to carry on for a while to prove their point. This is left to the discretion of the presiding judge. More complex objections and responses may require more discussion for the judge to understand the arguments before making a ruling. Presiding judge is also free to ask questions of either attorney for further clarification. Once a judge has heard enough of an argument from both sides, a ruling should be made. The judge should also not consult with the jury, as this would not happen in real life. The judge should also hold the line on legal issues. If a statement is hearsay, don't allow it in. Some exhibits and statements in the case have direct violations of the rules of evidence. These should be treated thusly. If a team does not meet the threshold for admitting something, require they do so before admitting it. However, if there is doubt about something or it could be a toss-up, feel free to let it in. Finally, there is no appeal in mock trial, so judges don't worry about being overturned. Occasionally, an emergency will occur during a round. If this happens, the presiding judge should take control of the situation and direct the teams as to what to do. If a competing student, attorney, or witness must leave the courtroom, a coach from each team should accompany the student out of the room. Everyone else in the courtroom should remain in place and quiet. No communication between the team and any coaches or spectators should occur. Bathroom breaks are not an emergency and should not be expected. There are occasions where a team does not have 6 witnesses for the competition, and one of their students must play 2 witness roles. In this case, the student will play a witness from each side of the case, starting in the prosecution's courtroom. After testifying for the prosecution, the student will then move to the team's other courtroom and sit in as their defense's witness. Teams should notify the presiding judge during pretrial matters if this will occur during the round. Some exhibits are aided by stipulations in the case materials. However, most of the exhibits will need a witness to lay proper foundation before it should be admitted. While all exhibits are stipulated to being authentic, the foundation of the exhibits has not been stipulated to. Only a handful of stipulations are included to cover exhibits, so teams will need to lay the foundation. Remember, while exhibit admittance is timed, feel free to hold the teams to a standard of admissibility for the purposes of the competition. A mock trial must have a limited set of facts available to the teams. In mock trial, as in real trials, there are always bad facts we wish would go away and good facts we wish we had. Mock trial cases are designed that way. If a witness is asked for information that is not in their witness affidavit, the best answer is, "I don't know." However, the witness may supply an answer that is consistent with the witness's statement. This is an extrapolation. It is fair if it does not materially affect testimony or a substantive issue. An extrapolation is unfair if it is inconsistent with the witness's statement and it materially affects testimony or a substantive issue of the case. This means that it goes outside the scope of the witness's knowledge as provided in the witness statement and is used to gain an adversarial advantage in the case. If the opposing team believes an extrapolation is unfair, it is best attacked through impeachment of that witness and in the closing argument. An attorney applying this method should be considered with an appropriate award of points. Likewise, a witness should be considered for a deduction of points for employing the unfair extrapolation. Opposing counsel may also object to an unfair extrapolation by referring to Rule 4. If this happens, presiding judges should have the opposing team point to the location in the materials where the testimony originates. The judge should then make a ruling that there was no extrapolation, that it was fair, or that it was unfair. Scoring judges are not bound by the presiding judge's ruling on the extrapolation. Each scoring judge may evaluate the extrapolation, come to their own conclusion, and score the team accordingly, based on how an unfair extrapolation was handled by both sides. Each speaking role is scored on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest score. Evaluators should vary the scores to be reflective of the skill, knowledge, proficiency of the student. Scores should not reflect the legal merits of the case, and should not be based upon a student's dress, physical appearance, or their real accent or dialect. Evaluators are encouraged to start with an average score of 5 or 6, and then adjust the scores up or down accordingly. If everyone receives a score of 9 or 10, there's no differentiation between the students' performances. Page 24 of the Judging Panel Manual contains an explanation of the scoring guidelines for each segment of the case. This is also contained on the back of the green scratch sheet each evaluator will have during the round. We do ask that evaluators provide an explanation or comment for any scores that they give of 4 or lower. During the round, the evaluator should use this green scratch sheet to score the students. Feel free to make adjustments to your scores as the trial progresses. After the round, the evaluator's final scores will then be transferred to the official score sheet before being turned in to the scoring room for tabulation. In evaluating the students, evaluators are free to adjust their points based on a number of factors, including how well a student knew their case, including a minimal reliance on written notes, handled making objections and responding to objections, handling instances of unfair extrapolation, and adapting their closing argument to reflect what happened during the trial, as well as directly responding to the opposing side's case. Witnesses should be believable and convincing as a character. They should also refrain from using unfair extrapolation to advance their case, and also should refrain from attempting to waste the other side's time on cross-examination by giving lengthy or unnecessary responses. Finally, evaluators will assign a score for team points, gauging the team's performance and continuity as a whole. Evaluators will be given a comment sheet to take notes on during the trial. This may prove helpful when scoring the students and providing feedback during the critique. The use of the comment sheet is optional, except for instances where the score of 4 or lower is awarded. In this case, please provide an explanation of the score. Teams enjoy seeing comments from the evaluators, so if you would like to provide the sheet to the teams, return it with your score sheets after the round. If you would rather the teams not receive your written notes or comments, then tear it in half before returning it. At the conclusion of the closing arguments, the presiding judge will follow the script before dismissing the jury to the jury deliberation room to complete the official score sheets. After handling any disputes, the judge will then put the court into a 15-minute recess and join the evaluators. Score sheets must be completed individually without any consultation between the evaluators and the judge. Please do not share your thoughts about the students or compare notes when completing your score sheet. Remember that evaluators are not bound by the judge's rulings on objections. When completing your score sheet, it is imperative that every box gets a number between 1 and 10. No fractions or partial points are allowed. At the bottom, assign team points to each team. There cannot be a tie score between the two teams in this team box. Next, circle the squad to receive the tie-breaking point. This will only be used by the scoring room if your ballot results in a tie in the final point total. You don't need to worry about doing the final point total additions. The scoring room will handle this math for you. If you make a mistake and need to change a score, please cross out the wrong number and write the new correct number next to it. Do not try to write the correct number on top of the old one. It makes it very difficult for the scoring room to understand what the correct score is. Initial the correction. Finally, don't forget to write your name and sign the score sheet at the bottom. As soon as all 3 evaluators are done with their score sheets, they need to get to the scoring room. Please do not wait until the outstanding awards are complete or after the critique to send the score sheets back. The scoring room needs to get to work on the tabulation process as soon as possible. Once the score sheets have been sent to the scoring room, the panel may then discuss the outstanding attorney and witness awards. Each judging panel may elect to recognize an outstanding attorney and an outstanding witness from each round. The decision should be from a majority vote of the judging panel. Please pick the panel member with the neatest handwriting to complete the award certificate. Make sure to use the trial squad roster form for the correct spelling of the students' names. For the Outstanding Witness Award, write the student's actual name, not the character's name. For both awards, make sure to include the squad code from each student. Finally, everybody on the panel needs to sign the award, even if the decision was not unanimous. Missing signature will suggest to the student the award was not unanimous and hurt the student's feelings. After everything is done in the deliberation room, the panel will return to the courtroom for the debriefing or the critique. This portion is limited to 10 minutes time. The panel members should quickly introduce themselves and then provide a brief, positive, constructive feedback. Do not make any suggestions that would overhaul the team's case. Small suggestions that can be made before the next round are fine. Finally, do not renounce any results. Do not divulge either of the outstanding award winners nor any of the ballot results. At the conclusion of the debriefing, the students will probably want to greet you and thank you for your time. Be mindful that if you know any of the students personally or have had previous mock trial experience with them, play it cool. The other team will notice your chumminess with the opposing team, and red flags go up about your bias towards that other team. Don't catch up and ask about the mama in them. This is not the time or place for that. The perception of bias of an evaluator is one of the most destructive forces in the competition. After a few minutes, the panel should return to the orientation room to be dismissed. Please do not leave the courthouse until your panel is cleared by the scoring room in case clarifications are needed about your ballot. If you have to cancel, please contact your trials coordinator as soon as possible to give them enough time to find a replacement for your position. It would help if you would be able to identify someone that would be able to take your place. Again, thank you for taking the time to watch this video and for volunteering your time for our competition this season. We could not do it without you. We hope you enjoy your time with the students and enjoy the trial.